Hi everyone, this is Emily Leiphart, and today I'm sharing a fun city scene using Simon Hurley Create products. This card features 3 products from Simon's latest release, including the Window Maker Stencil, the School Scribbles Cling Background Stamp, and the Puppy Puns Clear Stamp Set. These 3 products are also sold as the Puppy Puns bundle at Ranger Inc., and I'll have more on that at the end of my video, as well as a discount code. As I mentioned in my unboxing video, I could see myself using these stenciled shapes in different ways. I'll still be using the tall rectangle as a window, but not in the way it was intended here. I'm going to use the School Scribbles background to create a mural for the building, where the inhabitants will be the pups from Puppy Puns. I love everything about this background, from the cute little images to the fun words. It'll be so much fun to pick which of these pups will live in this high-rise building. It's a good thing that there will be 6 windows on this card, so I only have to narrow down to half these puppies. The first thing I'm going to do here is measure the window so I can create masks and lay them down before stamping the background. I use my design ruler and the window measures 1 inch by 2 1/16 inches. I trimmed 6 of these rectangles from masking paper and set them on the panel, which I've cut from Simon's stark white cardstock. I line up the panel on my grid mat, and once I've determined the position of the windows on the panel, I'll draw pencil lines to help me line up the masks. Using my design ruler and lines on the grid mat, I draw lines down the center of the panel, both vertically and horizontally, as a guide for the windows. Then I bring the masks back to the panel to determine how far they need to be spaced apart from one another. I continue to draw lines to mark the centers of those windows, and then I can peel the backing and adhere the masks to the panel. I do add 2 more lines to help me line up the top and bottom rows. Once all the masks are in place, I prepare the School Scribbles Cling background in the original Minty stamping tool. Then I place some removable tape on the back of my panel and place it inside the Minty for stamping. I'm using one of my favorite new ink colors called Minty Fresh for this background because it's so busy, and for this design I want it to have a more subtle effect. Joining this color will be another new color, Tropical Tango, and 3 older colors, Rosy Cheeks, Over the Moon, and Woof, which isn't pictured here. I ink up the entire background and stamp it twice. After I remove the masking paper, the windows are revealed, and I use an eraser to remove all the pencil lines. Next, I use the same Minty Fresh ink, the Window Maker Stencil, and a blender brush to ink around 3 sides of each window. I use post-it notes to cover up the holes around the window to make it easier to use and so I don't accidentally use those parts of the stencil on the surrounding areas of the panel. I have to remove and replace the post-it notes every time I shift the stencil over so I can see the edges of the stamped School Scribbles background and ensure that the next window is lined up with the previous window. Now I stamp the 6 puppies in Woof ink, and I stamp them 3 times to get them as dark as possible. I didn't want to use black ink to stamp them because I wanted to keep the card as soft as possible. Layering the Woof ink worked very well, and since Simon's inks are reactive to water, the edges of the images softened nicely with the watercoloring. I haven't created my paint palette yet, so I simply added drops of ink refills to my media mat and started shading in the puppies. This process was quick and easy, and I really love the way they turned out. They look like they belong on a comic strip, and this was exactly what I was aiming for. Here's a quick look at the dogs in their respective apartments, after they've dried and I've trimmed them out. While I was editing this video, I realized how good they looked, even without the accessories and additional colors. So I'll have to remember this for future cards with these same products. It would be a great way to make a masculine card. Next, I stamp out all the accessories and watercolor them with the remaining colors. For me, the trickiest part of arranging all the accessories on the dogs was figuring out the pattern for the colors. It would have been easier if I only had 1 accessory and 1 color for each dog, but since they already had collars that I purposely left uncolored until this stage, the 2 or 3 variables complicated things. The bulldog's tongue also threw a wrench in my plans. I decided to arrange the accessories from lightest to darkest on the top row. Then each color would be shifted over 1 spot in the consecutive row, and this would also be the way I would do it if this card had 3 rows. Creating a pattern is the easiest way to make sure all colors get equal exposure. I also tried to make sure that each type of accessory had equal exposure, and there's also a pattern here too, in the way they're laid out. After everything is colored, I use glue dots to adhere all the accessories to the dogs. When I started this card, I planned to use a straight sentiment at the very center of the card, between the 2 rows of dogs. When it came time to choose that sentiment, I decided to use the 2 speech bubbles to stick with the comic strip look. I stamped both speech bubbles using the rock and roll technique on the Mini Minty stamping tool. I used Rosy Cheeks and Over the Moon in reverse order. I did experiment with Rosy Cheeks and Tropical Tango, but while the two colors looked very cool together, they were too dark for the card. I also stamped the speech bubbles in Woof to see how they would look. I liked the brighter speech bubbles more, but since I cut out the gray ones, I thought I would use them behind the ombre ones as a shadow and to help them stand out against the busy wall of the building. After adhering the dogs and speech bubbles to the panel, I secure it to the card base. I decided to add some sparkle to the background, so I basically traced all of the school scribbles, which was so much fun. While I was doing that, I accidentally got some sparkle on one of the speech bubbles, so I decided to color in both speech bubbles, and I love all the sparkle. If you enjoyed today's video, please click on the subscribe button so you don't miss any videos. Thanks so much for watching and for supporting the Simon Hurley Create line of products. All of these products are available at Ranger Ink and Scrapbook.com. The 3 products I used together are actually sold as a bundle at Ranger Ink, and you can click on the link below and use the code SIMON20 at checkout to save 20% on your order. Be sure to head to my blog for all the details, more photos, and a full supply list. See you again soon!